Listen, I want to start with a simple question, and I want you to answer it silently, as if I were standing right there with you, looking you in the eye, feeling the room's temperature rise as you think about it. What is the one thing that you truly want to change in your life? The one ambition that makes you feel both terrified and exhilarated at the same time. Maybe it's to launch a product that changes the way people travel. Maybe it's to create a company that solves a massive problem. Maybe it's simply to become the kind of person who can look in the mirror and say, I'm doing everything I can to make the future better for everyone. We all have that thing, hidden under layers of doubt, procrastination, or the loud noise of daily demands. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how you can turn that hidden thing into a concrete reality using the same principles that have guided me through the crazy journey of building Tesla, SpaceX, and the rest of the ventures I've been involved in. I'm not here to tell you it'll be easy. It will be hard, it'll be painful, you will stumble, and you will feel like quitting more times than you can count. But I am here to give you a map, a set of tools, a philosophy that, if you apply it with discipline, will take you from where you are now to where you want to be. I'll talk about mindset, self-discipline, overcoming fear, consistency, the habits of success, rebuilding yourself after a fall, resilience, personal growth, ambition, handling failure, and staying focused. We'll go step by step, and I'll try to keep it natural, like a conversation, because that's how I've always approached these things. Talking directly, thinking out loud, and always keeping the bigger picture in mind.
First, let's talk about mindset. I have learned that the only way to see the future clearly is to start from first principles. I remember the first time I tried to think about making a car that was not just electric but also desirable. I didn't start by asking, how do we make a better battery? Or how do we lower costs? I started by asking, what does a car have to do to be worth buying to be something people actually want? I broke it down to the essentials: a vehicle that is safe, fast, beautiful, affordable, and fun. Then I asked what must be true for each of those. That is first principles thinking. You can apply the same method to your personal goals. Stop looking at what everyone else is doing, stop copying the habits of those you admire blindly, and instead ask, what are the fundamental truths about what I want to achieve? Maybe you want to become a better public speaker. First principles would ask, what does a great speaker do? They practice, they study, they learn to manage nerves, they connect with the audience. Now you ask, what does it take for me to do that? Then you work backwards from there. The power of that approach is that it strips away assumptions and lets you see the core problem. And once you see the core problem, you can design a solution that is uniquely yours, not a copy of someone else's path. Mindset also requires you to think big, not in the sense of wild fantasy, but in the sense of being willing to tackle problems that matter at scale. I have always believed that if you're not working on something that could affect a large portion of humanity, then you're probably not ambitious enough. That doesn't mean you have to start with Mars, but it means you should aim to make an impact that feels disproportionate to the effort you put in. You can start small, but think about the downstream effects. If you are building a new app, think about how it could become a platform for millions. If you are improving a process at work, think about how that improvement could be applied across the entire industry. Big thinking creates the space for the other elements of success to thrive. The next pillar is self-discipline. I know the word discipline sounds old-fashioned, like a military term, but I see it as a design constraint, just like the limits we have when designing a rocket. A rocket has to work within the constraints of mass, thrust, fuel, and aerodynamic forces. If you ignore any of those constraints, the rocket will never leave the ground. Self-discipline is your personal constraint system. I wake up at the same time every day, I block out time for deep work, I limit meetings to the essentials, I schedule exercise, I make sure I eat in a way that fuels my brain, and I set a hard cutoff for anything that isn't aligned with my goals. I treat these constraints as non-negotiable because I understand that without them I will drift. You have to decide what your constraints are, write them down, and then enforce them. It may be as simple as no phone for the first hour after I wake up, or I will read at least one chapter of a technical book before I check email, or I will spend 10 minutes each evening reviewing what I've done and planning tomorrow. When you make these constraints part of your identity, you'll find that you have more time and energy for the things that truly matter. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's the scaffolding that lets you build something extraordinary. Overcoming fear is the third element, and I think fear is the biggest barrier for most people. I have faced fear many times: fear of failure after the first 3 rockets exploded, fear of ridicule when I announced a plan to go to Mars, fear that Tesla might never become a viable business. What I learned is that fear is a signal that you are stepping into new territory. Fear does not mean you should stop, it means you should prepare. I have a practice that might sound simple, but it has helped me move forward even when my heart was racing. I acknowledge the fear, then I take a step forward no matter how small. After the third rocket explosion, I didn't think about the next launch as a sure success. I thought about what we could change, what we could test, what we could improve, and I did that with a team that was as scared as I was. The key is to separate the emotional reaction from the logical analysis. The brain is wired to protect us from danger, but if you don't rewire that protective instinct, you will never take the leaps that are required to create something new. You have to train yourself to treat fear as data, not as a stop sign. When you feel that knot in your stomach, ask yourself, what is the worst realistic outcome? What can I do to mitigate that outcome? Then take a small action that moves you closer to your goal. Each time you do that, your confidence builds and the fear that once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable. Consistency is what turns a spark into a flame that can light an entire city. You can't launch a rocket, manufacture 1,000,000 cars, or build a software empire with a few bursts of energy. You need a steady thrust that lasts. I have found that the most important habit that enables consistency is a daily review. Every night, I write down what I accomplished that day, what I learned, what I did wrong, and what I will do tomorrow. I also give myself a rating on focus and discipline for the day. This habit has been instrumental because it forces me to see patterns, to adjust my approach, and to keep moving forward even when I have a tough day. Consistency also extends to the way you treat your health. If you want your mind to be sharp, you must keep your body healthy. I prioritize sleep, exercise, and nutrition not as luxuries but as essential components of my productivity system. You might not have the luxury of an entire hour for the gym, but you can find 10 minutes for a quick walk, 5 minutes for stretching, or 2 minutes for breathing exercises. Consistency is the accumulation of those tiny actions over time. Habits of success are the building blocks that make consistency possible. I've learned that you need both big habits and micro habits. Big habits are things like a weekly strategic planning session, a monthly deep dive into a new technology, a quarterly review of personal and professional goals. Micro habits are the tiny, repeatable actions you can do in seconds, like a 10-second meditation when you sit down at your desk, a quick note to yourself on your phone when an idea strikes, or a short gratitude list before you go to sleep. The beauty of micro habits is that they require almost no willpower, so you can do them even on the busiest days. I also try to apply 10x thinking to habits. Instead of just planning to write one paragraph of a report, I set a goal to write 1,000 words of a blog post. Then, if I fall short, I still have a substantial amount of progress. The idea is to push the bar high enough that you still make meaningful headway, even if you don't hit the target perfectly. Now let's talk about rebuilding yourself after a fall. I have been there. After the first 3 rockets exploded, I questioned everything. After PayPal, I thought I might have burned out. After Tesla's early production hell, I felt like a failure. But I learned that the ability to rebuild is not a talent, it's a process. I took a step back, I examined the causes of the failures, I asked my team what we could improve, I identified the gaps, and then I wrote a new plan. I didn't try to pretend the failures never happened, I used them as fuel. Rebuilding starts with acceptance. You have to admit that you fell, you have to own the reasons, and you have to decide that you will learn from it. Then, you design a system that prevents the same mistakes from happening again. The second step is to surround yourself with people who share that rebuilding mindset. I look for engineers, designers, and thinkers who are relentless, who are willing to tell me when I'm wrong, and who can help me find a better solution. I also give myself permission to pivot when necessary. If a product or an idea is not working, I do not cling to it out of pride. I pivot quickly, using the knowledge I gained from the failure to improve the new direction. Resilience, I think, is the ability to bend without breaking, and it is essential for anyone who wants to change the world. I have seen carbon fiber fail under stress because it was too rigid, and I have seen it succeed when it was engineered to flex. The same is true for human beings. You have to be tough enough to endure pressure but flexible enough to adapt to new circumstances. I have a practice I call stress inoculation. I deliberately expose myself to situations that are just outside my comfort zone, whether that's a public interview, a technical challenge I'm not fully prepared for, or a product launch that has a high risk of failure. I do it not to cause damage, but to train my mind and my team to handle stress. You can do something similar. If you're scared of public speaking, start by speaking in front of a small group of friends, then gradually increase the size of the audience. Each time you survive, your confidence grows and the stress you feel in the future feels more manageable. Personal growth is a lifelong journey, and I believe that learning should be a habit, not an occasional event. I read a lot books about physics, biographies of great engineers, histories of companies that have changed the world. I also spend time thinking about how the lessons from those readings apply to the challenges I'm facing. I keep a notebook where I write down insights, and I revisit those notes regularly. I have found that the biggest growth comes when I apply what I learn in a practical way. I don't just read about rockets, I design them. I don't just study batteries, I build them. I think the same applies to personal development. You can read about confidence, but you won't truly build confidence until you put yourself in situations where you have to act with confidence. Every day, I try to learn at least one new thing that I can use to improve my performance tomorrow. Ambition is what pulls the whole picture together. If you don't have a vision that is bold enough, you'll never push yourself to do the hard work. I think ambition is the biggest driver of everything else. It is the North Star that guides decisions. When I set a goal to make humanity a multiplanetary species, I knew that would require solving problems in energy, transportation, manufacturing, and many other fields. That ambition forced me to think in terms of decades, not quarters. You need to set a long-term goal that feels exciting to you. You don't have to be a space entrepreneur to have a big ambition. You could aim to become the leading expert in your field, to start a company that improves education, to become a master at a craft you love, to make a product that changes how people interact with technology. The important thing is that your ambition is something that truly inspires you, because that inspiration will be the fuel that carries you through the inevitable difficult days. Handling failure is an art. I have failed many times, and I have learned that the way you respond to failure determines whether it is a setback or a springboard. I try to treat failure as a data point. I ask what went wrong, why it went wrong, what assumptions were incorrect, and how we can change our approach next time. I then share those learnings openly with my team because I believe that transparency creates a culture where people are not afraid to take risks. You can do the same. After a failure, write a brief post-mortem, identify the root causes, and then develop a plan to address them. The mistake many people make is to hide their failures, to try to pretend they didn't happen, or to get stuck in self-blame. The reality is that failure is part of the process of any great undertaking. If you can embrace it, you will be able to iterate faster, adapt quicker, and achieve higher levels of performance. Staying focused is perhaps the most challenging skill in a world full of distractions. I have learned to protect my focus like a rocket protects its trajectory. I block out time for deep work, I turn off notifications when I need to think, and I keep my workspace free of clutter. I also set a clear set of priorities for each day, and I refer to that list when I feel the urge to check email or social media. I try to keep my main goals visible at all times. I have a wall in my office with a picture of the Falcon Heavy, a picture of a Tesla Model S, and a handwritten note that reads, "Make life multiplanetary." Those visual cues keep my mind on the larger purpose. You can do something similar. Write your long-term goal on a sticky note and place it where you will see it every day. Create a list of the 3 most important tasks you need to accomplish that day, and tackle them before you do anything else. It may seem simple, but I have found that maintaining a clear focus on a limited set of priorities is the most efficient way to make progress. Now let's tie all these pieces together with a narrative that shows how they interact. Imagine you are standing at a launch pad looking up at a rocket that is about to take off. The rocket is the culmination of countless hours of engineering, testing, and iteration. You could say that the rocket itself is a product of discipline because every bolt, every weld, every software line was placed with precision. The rocket's design is a product of mindset because engineers started with first principles, understanding aerodynamics, material science, and thrust requirements, and then designed something that could overcome those constraints. The rocket's launch is a product of ambition because the goal was not just to get into orbit, but to send humans to Mars one day. The first few seconds of liftoff are when fear is strongest because the rocket is pushing against gravity, but the engineers have mitigated that fear by having multiple redundant systems in place. The rocket's ascent is a product of consistency because each stage must fire in a precise sequence, and if one stage fails, the whole mission is compromised. The recovery and landing of the first stage are a product of resilience, because the stage must be able to bend under the stresses of re-entry and then land upright on a tiny platform in the ocean. The data gathered from each flight feeds into personal growth because the team learns what works, what does not, and how to improve next time. And the ultimate goal of colonizing Mars drives the ambition that keeps everyone focused. You can think of your life as that same rocket. Every day you are either building the stages, testing the systems, or launching the vehicle. The stages you build are your habits and your discipline. The systems you test are your mindset and your approach to problems. The launch is the moment you take action on a new project, a new idea, or a new habit. The recovery and landing are the moments you recover from setbacks, learn, and pivot. The data you gather from each iteration helps you become more effective at building the next rocket. I want you to take away from this a practical roadmap. I will keep it simple, but I hope it serves as a guide you can follow every day. Step 1. Define a clear, ambitious goal that excites you. Write it in one sentence and place it where you will see it often. This is your North Star. Step 2. Break that goal down into the fundamental building blocks. Ask yourself, what are the core constraints I must satisfy to achieve this? Write them down. This is your first principles analysis. Step 3. Set constraints on your time and energy that force you to work toward those building blocks. Decide on a set of daily habits that align with your constraints. Make them non-negotiable. Step 4. Schedule a daily review. Before you go to sleep, write down what you accomplished, what you learned, and what you will improve tomorrow. This is your feedback loop. Step 5. Deliberately expose yourself to fear-inducing situations that are aligned with your goal. Treat each exposure as a training session for your nervous system. Learn to separate emotion from analysis. Step 6. Identify your biggest potential failure points. Develop contingency plans for each. Practice them so that when a problem arises, you have a protocol to follow. Step 7. Create visual cues that keep your goal and your plan visible. These could be sketches on a whiteboard, a picture on your desk, or a note on your phone. The purpose is to keep your mind anchored. Step 8. Schedule time for learning. Read books, watch lectures, listen to podcasts that deepen your understanding of the domain you are working in. Then apply what you learn immediately to your project. Step 9. Practice resilience. When you encounter a setback, run a quick post-mortem, extract the lesson, adjust your plan, and move on. Remember that a setback is data, not a defeat. Step 10. Protect your focus. Set clear priorities for the day, block out distractions, and work on your most important tasks before you check email or social media. Your focus is a finite resource, use it wisely. The beauty of this roadmap is that it can be applied to any ambition, whether you want to become an entrepreneur, a scientist, an artist, a parent, or anything else. The principles are universal because they are grounded in the way reality works: constraints, systems, iteration, and relentless execution. I have a few more thoughts about how you can embed these principles into your day-to-day life without feeling overwhelmed. I suggest you start with one habit at a time. You don't need to overhaul your entire schedule on day one. Choose the habit that feels most aligned with your goal and implement it for at least 2 weeks. Once it feels natural, add the next habit. This incremental approach reduces friction and builds momentum. I also encourage you to find a community of people who share your ambition. I have found that surrounding yourself with people who are also striving for something big creates a feedback loop of energy, ideas, and accountability. It could be a local meetup, an online forum, or a group of colleagues who meet regularly to discuss progress. The key is that these people challenge you, support you, and keep you honest when you start to drift. Another thing that has helped me maintain my drive is to keep a progress board where I can see the milestones I have achieved. When I look back at the months and years of work, I can see how far I have come. That visual proof of progress fuels my motivation when the future feels uncertain. You can create a simple spreadsheet or a physical board where you check off each milestone. Seeing those boxes fill up is deeply satisfying and reinforces the habit of moving forward. I also want to emphasize that ambition does not have to be selfish. I have always believed that the most meaningful achievements are those that improve life for many people. If you have the chance to make something that benefits humanity, you should take it. That sense of purpose adds a layer of meaning that sustains you through the hard times. It reminds you that the long-term vision is larger than any single setback. Now let's talk about handling failure in more detail. I have come to see failure as a crucial ingredient in the recipe for innovation. When I first launched the Falcon 1, the first 3 attempts failed. I could have taken that as evidence that space travel was too hard, that I was wasting money and time. Instead, I analyzed each failure, identified the root cause, fuel pump nozzle, guidance system, and made the necessary changes. The fourth attempt succeeded, and that success was built on the lessons of those failures. The key is to treat each failure as a learning opportunity, not as a personal indictment. I also learned that the way you communicate failure to your team matters. I have found that being transparent about what went wrong and why it went wrong builds trust and encourages a culture where people feel safe to take risks and to speak up when something is off. You can apply this in your own life. If you fail to launch a product, if you miss a deadline, if you lose a client, sit down, write a brief analysis, and then share it with someone you trust. Ask for feedback. Incorporate that feedback into your next attempt. This process of iterative learning is what turns a failure into a stepping stone. I also want to talk about the role of curiosity in staying focused. Curiosity is what drives you to keep asking why and what if? I have always been a curious person, and I think that curiosity is a prerequisite for any big ambition. If you are not curious, you will not look for new ways to solve problems, you will not push the boundaries of what is possible, and you will not stay engaged in the long term. Curiosity is what keeps your mind active, and active minds are more capable of staying focused for longer periods. I encourage you to spend a few minutes each day asking a question about something you are working on, something you want to learn about, or something you want to improve. Write down the question and then spend a short amount of time researching the answer. The habit of asking and seeking answers will keep your brain sharp and your focus steady. Another aspect of staying focused is managing your energy, not just your time. I have learned that my most productive hours are in the morning after a good night's sleep and a light breakfast. I schedule my most demanding work for that window. I then reserve the afternoon for meetings, emails, and less cognitively demanding tasks. I also take short breaks every 90 minutes. I stand up, stretch, maybe take a quick walk. These breaks help reset my attention span. You may have a different rhythm, so I suggest you pay attention to when you feel most alert and focused, and then structure your day accordingly. As you can see, the elements we have discussed are tightly interwoven. Mindset gives you the lens through which you see the world. Discipline provides the structure that allows you to act on that lens. Fear teaches you when you are about to step beyond your comfort zone. Consistency ensures that you keep moving forward. Habits make consistency easier. Rebuilding yourself after setbacks creates resilience. Personal growth keeps your knowledge and capabilities expanding. Ambition gives you the drive. Handling failure provides the feedback loop that drives improvement. And staying focused ensures that you channel all of that into a single direction. I want to leave you with a final image that I hope will stay with you long after the speech ends. Picture a spacecraft that has been designed, built, tested, and is now standing on the launch pad, engines primed, fuel loaded, and a crew ready to embark on a journey to a new world. You are both the spacecraft and the crew. You have designed yourself with a purpose, built yourself with discipline, and equipped yourself with the tools to overcome the unknown. The launch pad is where you are now, with all your potential ready to be unleashed. The countdown is the series of habits you have cultivated, the constraints you have set, the mindset you have adopted. The liftoff is the moment you decide to take action on your ambition. The trajectory you follow will be determined by the decisions you make every day, the resilience you display after each setback, the curiosity you maintain as you explore the unknown. And the destination you reach will be a future you can be proud of, a future where you have lived up to your potential and have made a meaningful impact on the world. My final message to you is simple. The world needs people who are willing to push the boundaries, who are unafraid of the challenges, and who are disciplined enough to keep moving forward even when the path is uncertain. You have the capacity to be one of those people. You have the tools, the mindset, and the ambition. Now it is up to you to use them. Take that first step, build that first habit, ask that first question, and start building the rocket that will carry you to the future you envision. The sky is not the limit, it is the beginning. Thank you for listening, and I cannot wait to see what you create.